We have breaking news in the NBA. There has been a trade. The player who probably has been rumored to be in trade talks more than any other player in the history of the league over the last couple of years has actually been traded. With details, here's Chris Watkins.
Yes, Adrian Wojnarowski puts out here that ESPN sources tell him that the Hawks are finalizing a trade to, as you mentioned, send off the most probably heavily used man in ESPN trade machine history, forward center John Collins.
Wow.
John Collins finally gets moved for a Sacramento King. No, I'm kidding. A former Sacramento King. The Utah Jazz send off Rudy Gay in a future second-round pick in exchange for the Atlanta Hawks forward center John Collins. Atlanta largely unloading Collins' 3-year, $78 million contract for some roster-building flexibility in alignment with looming changes to the salary cap.
So it's almost like
Wojnarowski.
For the Jazz, it's almost like, all right, we'll take him off your hands, but you got to take Rudy Gay, and then we'll give you a second-round pick. And the Hawks like, yes, that's fine.
That's my first thought when I see this is, boy, oh boy, when we saw John Collins was being offered for literally anybody, I mean, it was the reality that John Collins must have been in a trade offer for quite literally everybody. And the one that ends up getting accepted is a soon to be 37-year-old Rudy Gay and a future second-round draft pick for John Collins. It does not get lower value than that. That is just about giving up nothing to get back a guy who has started a lot of games for Atlanta, and
16 points a game for a career.
16 point per game scorer. Yeah. He's a young guy. I think he's 25 or 26 years old.
71 games last year.
Incredible. And it just speaks to how low his value is. I mean, his contract isn't great, but I don't think it's backbreaking. And, John Collins is good. He's not awesome, but he's somebody who I think could contribute. And I think I really like that for Utah, who just continues to take – it's like the land of misfit toys. It's everything that nobody wants, Oh, you don't like Colin Sexton? Yeah, we'll take him. We'll find something there. Lauri Markkanen? Yeah. We'll figure out something. We'll make that work. And now John Collins is coming over. I think
he's from Utah.
Is he really?
He's from Leyden, Utah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's not a coincidence that he's moving to Utah, moving back over to Utah. Then I think it's a good situation for him. I think at this point he's gotten everything to prove. I clearly his value is incredibly low. I think that we've forgotten that John Collins is still a pretty decent player. When he's out there playing on the floor, and it's unfortunate that he was thrown in every trade possible, but I'm glad that now he has a new situation and we can look at him with some fresh glasses.
Yeah, the Kings got him about 3 or 4 times, right?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said the Kings got him about 3 or 4 times, right?
He's
rumored in everything.
Yes, rumored in everything. Yeah. Every Harrison Barnes trade, every Rashawn Holmes salary dump, everything was always for John Collins.
I was talking to Jerry about him once, and Jerry has really good friends with the Hawks, so Jerry knows the Hawks thinking maybe not as well as he did because they've had some regime changes. But I was saying on our podcast, I said, they don't like John Collins here in Atlanta because I thought they're always talking about trading him, and Jerry said it's not that they don't like him. They like him fine, but it's just that contract became burdensome for him. And what happened to John Collins' three-point shooting this year? Didn't he do something gnarly to his finger? He had some horrible finger injury or something. Yeah. Well, I don't know if that had anything to do with this, but look at his three-point shooting numbers. John Collins, who again has been traded to the Utah Jazz, going back to his rookie year, three-point percentages: 34%, 35%, 40%. 40%.
Wow.
36%. This year, 292.
Ooh. Yeah, that's not good. I mean, because that's how he's got to stay on the floor. He's got to be able to stretch the floor. He's not a defender at all. He's especially not a backup 5 or a small ball 5 at all. So if he's going to be on the court, he's got to be able to stretch the floor. And if he can't do that, then he's, I don't want to say unplayable, but it's just really tough to find significant minutes for him, especially when you're paying him $25 million per year.
Yeah, he got that contract based on what he did early in his career. The 2020 season, 21.6 points a game.
Wow.
40% from the three-point line, 10 rebounds a game.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And he's just not quite that good. He's never been an all-star. No. So he's one of those guys that also has been mentioned by Kings fans as they look for an upgrade. Some Kings fans have said, what about John Collins?
He's good. He's fine. He's not better than
he's
not better than Harrison Barnes.
He's never going to be the player that he and everyone else thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I think he can be a really valuable kind of backup guy. You see, you know what role I think would be perfect, like absolutely perfect for him, is that role that Rui Hachimura just played for the Lakers in the playoffs. I think he could be like a super sub.
But he just makes too much money for that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at this point, and let me tell you, in the 2025-26 season, he has a $26 million player option. Do we want to break more news here? He's gonna pick that up. Something tells me John Collins is going to take that $26 million. I think so. I think something tells me in 2 years his value is not going to go
unless he can work out some kind of long-term deal with Danny.
I think Danny is looking at this like, boy, oh boy, kind of like how Isaiah Thomas used to look at big contracts. Just this will be expiring one day. One day this will turn into an expiring contract, and that'll be when I get the value on it. But as it sits right now, I mean, that is an absolute monster of a deal to take on for a guy that, again, maybe in Utah he could start some games. I think he'll probably be their sixth man. I can't imagine he's going to crack the rotation or the starting lineup over Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. But I think I think there's going to be a moment this year where we're like, wow, John Collins was in trade rumors for like the past 3 years. Maybe somebody should have jumped on it. And I could definitely see that for a week or two where John Collins is averaging maybe like those numbers that he averaged before, 20 and 10. I could definitely see it. But I think in the long term, it's best to be out of the John Collins business.
He played 5 games against Boston in actually these are his last 5 games of the playoffs. So he was, 6 for 8.
Okay.
Let's see, he had 16 points. He had 22 points, and he had 5 points, 8 points, 5 points.
Ugh. So again, level of consistency there too is not quite what you want.
Actually, I take that back. It actually goes the other way. So it was 5 points, 8 points, 5, 22, and 16. So he finished that season.
There you go. Finish
that series with a flourish. Pardon me for reversing those numbers. So he's a hard player to figure because it's easy to look at some of the things he's done in the past, some of his numbers, and say, wow, this is a really good player, but he's not worth the money that he's getting, and he hasn't been consistent enough.
Yeah, and he just doesn't really do much outside of score either. I mean, he's a good scorer, as we established. Like he's been up near 16 to as high as 21 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at the rebounding numbers. I mean, since he averaged 10 rebounds that one season, has never been over 8 rebounds per game. He's 7.5, 7.8, and 6.5. Doesn't move the ball extraordinarily well. Again, doesn't really protect the rim at the level you'd want him to do it at.
Not that type of
he's a good piece, but if you're going to be paying him $26 million, I mean that's just way too much for what he's actually giving you. And he's a fine player, but not really moving the needle much. But in terms of just a value acquisition, I like it for Utah. I mean, if you're shipping off Rudy Gay and a second round pick, that's really nothing. And you're definitely getting a player that has some talent. I kind of look at it like when the Kings brought over Harrison Barnes. I mean, they traded Justin Jackson and Zach Randolph. Harrison wasn't fantastic. He didn't bring the Kings a championship or anything, but I think especially for what they gave up for him, Harrison Barnes was a really good move in a vacuum. I think
Utah's one of those teams as the Kings look in the rearview mirror that scares me a little bit. Maybe they do for John Collins something similar to what they did for. Remember when Lauri Markkanen was like, that guy's terrible.
Yeah, last year you mean
even
365 days ago.
He's the player.
Yeah, he's a great player. He's an all-star.
Yes.
He's a 25 point per game scorer. He's a guy that maybe is a franchise player. I mean, there was Dirk comparisons being thrown out last year to Lauri Markkanen. So
Dirk Nowitzki?
Yes. The very same. Yeah. Not goodness. Dirk Verdern, obviously, the great weatherman here in Sacramento.
Yes.
But Dirk Nowitzki. Yes.
Dirk Verdorn's been a backup. He could be starter at most teams.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's
question.
Yeah, got the experience, got the knowledge, all of it. Yeah. I would sign Verdorn tomorrow.
But that underscores again, as we've said, how important it is for the Kings to strike and to score with all the moves they make in this offseason. There's teams behind them that are making moves that look like they're
scary.
They're sensible.
Yeah. And the King, that's why, it's good to see that the Kings are going to have the cap space to do something, because they're going to have to make, I don't know if it's got to be a big splash, but they got to definitely make some ripples if they want to continue to compete in the West, because there's a lot of young teams beneath them who are making moves.
Yep. All right, so we had to share that breaking news with you, and we're going to have a lot of breaking news in the days to come. Don't worry, this is a place to be for the latest on what's going on with the NBA. But we got to get to the 49er prediction. National Writer has a 49er prediction. I think it's just dumb. Let's see what you think next. Chris and company, Watkins and Whitey on Sactown Sports.
Catch the Oakland A's every weekend